So are you ready for this story time on how I dated a DL man and how his fiance just called me the other day? Yesterday? Yeah, let's talk about it. So I'm going to try not to edit this video. I'm going to make this video pretty long, but I'm going to edit it into parts. But I'm going to give you my everything. And then the last part, I'm going to make on a completely different day. But since that trout mouth Edie is watching these videos, the fiance, grab your popcorn, sweetheart, sit back, and maybe you'll learn a thing or two. So, we're going to start from the very beginning. Before I met Tony, I had been abstinent for 6 years. I was not looking for a man, was not thinking of a man or any type of relationship, wasn't entertaining it. No dating, no talking, no nothing. I was just doing me. I was becoming more spiritually grounded. I had my altar the way I wanted it. It was still growing at the time, still getting things for it. And I was seeing psychiatrists, trying to make sure, or trying to get my picker to be a good picker, right? Because I felt like my picker was a little off. And I wanted to just take time for me and love on me and learn me and what I wanted in my next relationship. So when I met Tony, I wasn't really looking for anybody. And I was kind of content. But things changed. So at this point in time, I'm living in Jersey. And my Nana is living in Florida. And my best friend at the time and her husband were living in Florida. And this was during COVID of 2020. If everybody remembers, Jersey was shut down. We couldn't really go anywhere, do anything. And Florida, you only had entry if you had a Florida driver's license or some type of identification. But they weren't letting everybody in. Well, even though I lived in Jersey, my driver's license still had Florida address on it. So we got in the car, me and my kids, and we drove down to Florida. I wanted to make sure my Nana was okay. She was older. It was COVID. I wanted to make sure everything was fine. So we drove down, got in, no problems. While I was visiting, my best friend's husband knew I was coming, but my best friend did not know I was coming. So I kind of surprised them on their anniversary. When I went to their home, I entered and there was this guy sitting at the table, and he was very loud, deep voice, and I could tell he was tall. Because if you didn't know, I'm 6 feet tall, right? So I was like, oh, he's real tall, you know. And he caught my eye, and I just had to ask. I was like, who is that? And they were like, oh, that's Tony. And I was like, oh, okay. Interesting. Now, I did peep out that he had a stutter problem, and he stuttered, but I thought it was kind of cute. And I also noticed that when he talked really loud. And I was like, what's that all about? Like, I thought maybe he had a hearing problem or something, because he was very loud. His voice was deep, but loud. Like he couldn't hear himself or something. And they told me that's just how he's always been. And I was like, okay. And I'm watching him, looking at him, talking with my friends, you know, every now and then glancing over. And then I notice that he talks a lot with his eyes closed as well. Like when he's talking, he doesn't look at you, and then he'll close his eyes, and he does that a lot. Like he'll close his eyes when he's talking, and he'll look away. So with these three things, I thought maybe he was autistic. And I was like, okay. But he was still very much he spoke in a way that all of those things kind of fell by the wayside. And you could tell he spoke with intelligence. You could tell that he didn't showboat. And there was just something about him that just, I don't know. I was willing to look past all of that. I'm also an Aquarius, so we sometimes can look past all of those things as long as there's one or two qualities that get us. And his smile. His smile was everything. It just lit up a room. He had hazel eyes. He stood about 6'5", which he didn't find out until later. He always thought he was 6'4", and I kept trying to tell him he was 6'5". And when he went to the doctor, he found out he was 6'5", which I already knew. But he stood 6'5", hazel eyes, dark chocolate, and he had those minor kinks, you know? But it was okay. So I stayed for the rest of the night and talked to my friends and all that. And I guess my friend went back and told him, hey, you know, my girl Raven over there thinks you're kind of cute. I don't know exactly what she said, but I was just assuming it was something like that. And so later on that night, I'm about to leave, and he's like, hey, can I talk to you outside for a minute? And I'm like, sure. You gonna walk me to my car? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So he walks me to my car, and we're talking, and then he asked me out on a date. And I accepted. And then he puts his hands on my hips, and he's like, you think I'm gonna do it? And I was like, you're not gonna do it. And he kisses me. And I got the butterflies and the fireworks. And so did he. And it was freaking amazing. I'm not gonna lie. It was one of those kisses from like the movies where you're looking at each other and you're kissing and it feels like it's going on for hours and you don't want to stop. The best first base I've had in quite some time. I mean, I had been 6 years, so I loved every minute of it. And by someone who I thought may have had potential. But again, I wasn't looking. So I told him, we're not going to say anything to anybody. We're not going to tell anybody we're dating. We're not going to tell anybody we're talking. We're going to keep this just between us. And he agreed. So it was a couple of days before our date, and we saw each other at my friend's house a couple of times, and he would sneak kisses from me outside. You know, I'd go outside and he'd come outside and he'd kiss on me and stuff like that. And it was just very cute. Felt like we were in high school sneaking around, and it was fun. And, you know, my likeness for him just kept growing. So we went to our first date, and our first date was at PF Chang's, and I got all dressed up, and he got all dressed up, and we walked around, and we had a great time, and we talked, and I asked him, I said, what is that one thing that people don't know about you that I should know about you? And he says to me, I get my nails painted. And I said, okay, in clear? Like you get a pedicure? You get your nails painted in clear? And he was like, yeah, I get pedicures, but no. I mean, I get my nails painted. Like in color. Different colors. Whatever colors I want. Okay. Well, that's new.